We are almost there, guys. A few weeks away to the 2018 draft. D'Angelo Williams in the house with us here today. Field Yates, Dan Graziano. I'm Diana Rossini. So our NFL Nation reporters who cover all 32 teams decided to get into this drafting spirit by actually redrafting the first round of last year's draft. What could have been is the thought. So let's start at number 1. Here's Pat McMenamin on what he thinks the Browns would do if they had to do it all over again.
In the redo of the 2017 NFL Draft for NFL Nation, I kept Myles Garrett as the first overall pick with the Cleveland Browns. The choice took a lot of thought between Garrett or a quarterback, but the bottom line is Garrett shows every signs of being a great player at an important position. A year ago, there really wasn't a lot of debate, if you think about it, that he was the best player and best talent in the draft. The only reason quarterback entered the discussion was because of Brown's need. During the season, Garrett had 7 sacks in 11 games. That would project to double digits for a full season. If he does that, he's probably in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The way he played, he looks like a future Defensive Player of the Year. If you believe Garrett was great before the draft and he was the best player then, and he did nothing to change that belief, you don't change the pick.
All right, so that was Pat McMenamin, and he knows everything about that Cleveland Browns organization. He's been covering them for years and years. So, D'Angelo, you heard what he had to say. He believes that the Browns would have gone with Myles Garrett again if they could do it again. Do you think that would have been a good decision?
It's a great decision. Great decision. Let's just be honest. Cleveland hadn't had any luck when it comes to drafting a quarterback.
Or anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, the safest pick in the draft was the Myles Garrett pick because it was a no-brainer. So there was no point in them changing it. I honestly agree with him. That was a great pick and a redraft.
Even knowing what Deshaun Watson can do. You saw a taste of that.
Yes.
You still think Myles Garrett is the better choice
they
for
have
Cleveland.
so many holes in Cleveland that they have to fill that he'd have been in trouble had he went there.
I mean, we get a lot of anti-quarterback propaganda from the running back on today's show, and I understand that. But I think knowing what we saw from Deshaun Watson, you'd have to reconsider, and you'd have to think about taking it. Certainly, you'd have to think about taking it further down before Houston traded up with you to get
sure,
it. But,
yeah.
But I think that's where you would have to go with the number 1 pick. As brilliant as Myles Garrett is, and I think he'll turn out to be a great player for them. If I had it to do over again and I was Cleveland, I would go quarterback. That said, if they didn't like any of those quarterbacks, and they obviously didn't, it's hard for me to say that to tell them who to like. But for me, I go quarterback.
Not going to overthink this one. 25 years of starving for a quarterback, and you have some signs there of Deshaun Watson being able to galvanize a franchise. Don't overthink it, Cleveland. Make Deshaun Watson, give him whatever jersey number he wants. He is your guy.
They're very pro-quarterback.
Really?
Realistic.
Really?
He's anti-quarterback.
Oh, yes.
I'm not anti-quarterback.
I'm
surprised
the last 3 to 4 years they've drafted a quarterback, and it didn't work out for them.
You don't think Deshaun Watson could be the answer for them, though?
Direct snaps to running back.
Is that not how they feel every year when they draft a quarterback? He is the answer, and then they found out it's not an answer. It's more of a question.
At some point,
you can't avoid it.
You can't avoid it. You just go to Myles Garrett.
All right, let's skip down to the Jags, all right? So we know that they took LSU standout Leonard Fournette, but the Jags reporter Mike DiRocco, he's got some thoughts on the redo.
I'm taking Alvin Kamara over Leonard Fournette, and here's the reason why. Tom Coughlin obviously wanted to go with a running back, so I'm going to stick with that philosophy. Fournette was a very good pick for the Jaguars, but Kamara is a little bit more versatile. He caught 81 passes last season, which certainly would have led the Jaguars in receiving, and that's where I think the Jaguars could have used a lot of help. They had some serious limitations at the receiver spot, and Kamara would have helped them overcome that, especially the loss of Allen Robinson in the season opener. And here's the thing to consider, too. We've seen in the last 2 Super Bowls just how dangerous a pass-catching running back can be. That certainly would have helped the Jaguars' offense, and quarterback Blake Bortles would have made a difference in that AFC title game for sure. So Alvin Kamara over Leonard Fournette.
All right, don't forget, too, Fournette, he missed 3 games, and Kamara played in all 16, so he's very durable. You're laughing. So they're speaking your language.
We know
here,
what your
running
answer
backs.
is, yeah.
What is your thought here?
You would have taken a quarterback.
Michael is wrong. I would have stuck with the same pick because Blake Bortles does not throw the ball to the running back. He doesn't throw it out of the backfield. So even with Alvin Kamara, he still would have been in the same situation that Leonard Fournette would have been in.
He's not giving him anything else that Fournette.
He's not giving him anything else.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's important to establish what your identity is and what you are as an offense and what you want to be week in and week out. Then it was pretty clear that Jacksonville wanted to dominate at the point of attack, be able to wear you down. They wanted to make sure that linebackers and defensive backs and even defensive linemen hated the idea of tackling a player in the beginning of the fourth quarter and beyond. And Leonard Fournette is a 240-pound freight train. Alvin Kamara is dynamic, but he is not nearly the kind of player that Fournette is in terms of a physical profile. Like, I don't know that 25 carries of Alvin Kamara a game is what you want. 25 carries of what Leonard Fournette brings you is what you need to be that kind of tone-setting offense.
I spoke to Tom Coughlin in training camp last year. Yeah, that's right.
We're back. Yep, we're back.
I spoke to Coughlin in training camp last year, asked him why Fournette. And he mentioned that fourth quarter aspect. A guy that we really feel can run the ball for us even when they know we want to run it.
Sure.
That can be sort of a bring-your-own-blocker type of guy. So that was my thought on why the identity of the Jaguars was power run game. The identity of the Jaguars was in part, we don't want Blake Bortles to throw it very much, so inviting a running back into the mix for that. D-Rock's arguments were very good. He knows the team well. And watching Kamara highlights, no one can tackle him anyway, so I guess he could function as your power runner. But I think Fournette, for the reasons Field outlined, still makes sense.
How about the New York Jets? They picked at number 6. Here's our Rich Cimini if New York could do it all over again.
I don't think the Jets would have any qualms about picking Jamal Adams again. But since he's already gone in the redraft, I think the choice becomes obvious. With the Jets, it's always about the quarterback, and that's why Patrick Mahomes would be the right guy in this situation. There's some risk because he only played one game last season, but it was a tremendous game that showed his potential, and he also played well in the preseason. So there's enough tape to validate the choice, especially when you consider the bleak situation that the Jets have at quarterback. With his big arm and leadership ability, he'd be a star in New York.
All right, so with Deshaun Watson already off the board here in the redraft. Oh, by the way, they did actually pass on Deshaun Watson in the actual draft. The Jets opted for the next best quarterback prospect in Mahomes. So what are your thoughts here? You've been a little anti-quarterback today, so are you down for this?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Hey, the one quarterback he likes.
No. I'm still trying to figure out why they didn't take him.
Oh, why
In the real draft.
No, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is who they passed on. That's who they didn't take.
No, I'm talking about, I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Well, all right, so you think that New York is in desperate need to figure out the quarterback spot?
They definitely got a quarterback situation. They didn't have much of one last year, but they have one this year, and they need a quarterback, and this could have been the quarterback that lifted them to where they needed to be. They're desperate for a big-name quarterback, and hey, who knows? There's a certain Kirk Cousins floating around.
Right, but you don't like him either.
It's true.
We've established priorities.
The way it worked out with the Jets, Josh McCown had a big year. So if you needed Mahomes to be in a situation where he sat for a year, as he was in Kansas City, we wouldn't have guessed this at the time, but the Jets pulled that off. McCown played well enough that no one was going to push him anyway, so except that they weren't winning. But you could have sat Mahomes for a year if that's what he needed. It'll be interesting to see. He got a lot of quarterback coaching in Kansas City from guys like Matt Nagy, Andy Reid, who have a lot of track record with it. What the Jets had in place on the coaching staff last year, Jeremy Bates, I think, is someone that might have been good for him, but maybe Mahomes ended up in a better situation.
And again, with the gift of hindsight, it allows us to use a track record. So there's some other players that might have come to mind for me. Tre'Davious White from the Buffalo Bills was phenomenal. T.J. Watt for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are these the Jets' top needs? No, quarterback's a top need, but you already know what these guys kind of are and can be.
It wasn't.
Right, that's right. Ryan Ramczyk from the Saints, that played every snap for them. You know, I think you can look at them. Oh, listen, and Jamal Adams was outstanding for them this year. But with him no longer available, I might have pivoted a different direction.
So D'Angelo's been telling us that a lot of players in the league right now are watching the show. Imagine if they just turn this on, trying to figure out what's going on here. Like, wait, hold on. The Jets took Patrick Mahomes? Is there a trade? What happened here?
Credibility skyrocketing.
Back in time.
All right, we still have lots.